Hey everybody, Bobby Medina here with you with my good friend and cohort, the great Paul Barron.
Hey.
And we have a very special episode today featuring two giants of the trumpet, my old friend Wayne Bergeron, who, as you know, has played with everybody, top call studio musician in Los Angeles, show player, extraordinaire. He's been Maynard's lead trumpet player. I could go on and on and on, but so great to have you here, Wayne.
Oh, great to be here again, man.
And we will let you introduce our other esteemed guest.
You know, the last time we did this, Bobby and Paul, you remember we talked about an East Coast, West Coast thing, and
we did.
And I thought of, I said, well, who would be better to have on here than the great Tony Kadleck? If you don't know who Tony Kadleck is, or as my voicemail says, Tony Cadillac. When I do a voice call on him, it's Tony Cadillac. He is one of the premier all-around versatile trumpet players in New York City, and we do a lot of the same kind of work from coast to coast. Tony's a session player, and I'm a session player. He plays shows, I play shows, and we're both unemployed now and doing nothing, but which is why we're here. But if Tony is one of my favorite lead trumpet players on this planet, and when people ask me about trumpet players from the past, who's my favorite, I have a long list. And when they ask me about present day trumpet players, Tony is always first on my list for many reasons. He's a great swinging big band lead trumpet player, but he's also, part of the reason of his success is because he's so versatile. He plays, he can play anything. He plays all the other keyed trumpets, and he plays jazz, he can improvise, he can do all these things really, really well, which makes him a hot commodity in New York City. And I got to tell you, so anyway, that's Tony Kadleck. But I want to say one more thing. Tony, when Gary Radke had you in his shop, going through mouthpieces and going through all that, he told me, because he didn't know who you were, because he's got his head in the sand kind of. And I go, no, you got to talk to this guy, so. But he said you were playing some C trumpet in there and stuff. And he said, I've had a lot of really great orchestral trumpet players come through here, and Tony Kadleck played equally as well as anybody that's walked in my door, which was a pretty high compliment, so.
Well, thanks, Wayne. Do you prefer PayPal or Venmo?
Cash, baby.
Yeah.
And don't forget our cut for Bobby.
Unmarked bills.
Yeah.
Well, let me throw out a quick question, then I get this party rolling here. How did you guys first meet, Tony?
Well, I knew of him, obviously. I knew Wayne for a million years just because of, you'd have to be under a rock to not know the name Wayne Bergeron, and if you're a trumpet player. But I don't think we actually met until much later on. I want to say it was, did the Bill Elliott gig? I mean, that might have been the only.
That's the first time we met, I think. Yeah, this band leader, Bill Elliott, who teaches at Berkeley now, he was in Los Angeles, and he had a swing band, and it was like a band, a 30s, 40s swing band of a lot of original music in that style with a vocal group, and it was kind of his specialty. And we did a lot of we worked on a lot of movies as a band, and they needed period music, and Bill was really great at this, So we went to New York, and we did the swing dance thing in New York, and we, they couldn't afford to bring his whole band out, so he brought two trumpets and the lead alto and the rhythm section, I think. And then we hired Tony to play in the section with us. And it was great fun. It was a great band and really cooking little swing band. So that's actually the first time we played together. Yeah.
That's right. I mean, it seems odd because I feel like I know you're playing well because I listen to you all the time. And in fact, I was going to ask you, not to, as an aside, did you play on Arrested Development by chance?
The TV show. I have played on some of the episodes.
Yeah, I could swear I heard you last night. I was watching it. I was like,
it could be, but that was a long time ago. I mean, and who plays on that show? I think Larry, David Schwartz does the music for that show, I believe. And who plays on most of those is this guy named Tom Marino.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow, Tom? Yeah.
He's good friends with David, and he teaches at the Buckley School. He teaches band where my daughter goes to school. But we worked at Disneyland together. And Tom was always a great player, but he went for the security route, and he got a nice teaching gig. But he still plays, and he kind of keeps his chops up, and he plays. So he's played on Curb Your Enthusiasm, and he actually plays on the theme to Modern Family.
Oh, okay.
And, people think that's me. And I go, well, I like to say it's me, but it's Tom, Uh, but yeah, so Tom actually plays on, but I have played on episodes of that show in the past, many years ago.
Cool. Now, have you worked out there with Wayne on the West Coast, Tony?
I've not. I've not been. I was supposed to be out there in April, which of course put the kibosh on that tour. But no, I haven't been out there in many years. I think I haven't been to LA since 2007 or so. It's been a long time. So no, I haven't been out there in ages.
You were supposed to come out here with Maria, right?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too bad, man.
Yeah. We were going to do wine country and do the whole thing. And like we had it all plotted out and no dice. So.
I was just kind of wondering, Paul and I were talking a little bit yesterday, and, I've just been wondering, from your vantage point and maybe what you've heard in your world, what do you guys foresee, for the future of live performance? I mean, when do you think it's going to come back in full force, if it ever really does anymore?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's just a hard one to call. As soon as people get their heads out of the sand, I won't say what I really wanted to say, and start, this is not going to go away till we do something about it. It's kind of up to us to fix it, and it's going to linger on and on as long as there's outbreaks, and this is never going to go away unless we do that. I mean, I'm hoping that by summer next year, we're on the other side of this, but if it happens sooner than that, I would be very surprised. I mean, I think if things improve, things will loosen up. I'm doing a live gig on Friday, actually, with Gordon Goodwin's Little Fat Band out in Irvine. And it'll be my first live gig since the pandemic began. And going through all this cancer stuff, I'm like really out of shape, and I was practicing this morning, and I'm looking over the music here and just trying to, can I do this? Can I get through it? Do I have the endurance? I don't know. I think I'm going to have them give me a good hot monitor mix, and I'm just going to play real easy and kind of do my best. I'm a little worried about it. I've lost 40 pounds, so I don't have my oomph, but anyway, that'll be my first live gig. And then we have another gig the following week, social distance, one of those gigs where you go to the drive-in and the cars park and for applause, they honk and stuff. So it's going to be interesting.
It's kind of funny because I was supposed to do one today after this is all over. And then because of all the fires and all the smoke we got up here, they canceled it. And so they're going to reschedule it. So it's like one thing after another. The other thing I was thinking about is even like if they come out with the vaccine, first of all, I don't want to be the first guy in line for that vaccine necessarily. But however, they're probably going to want to give that obviously to the people that need it most. It'll benefit from it the most. But even if there is, we get on the other side of this thing, I think there's going to be some hesitation about going to a theater filled with people. Just, it's like, God, I don't want to be around people coughing and sneezing and stuff.
Of course.
Just
I think they can do, as far as sporting events and stuff like that, like this new stadium the Chargers have out here, it's a gigantic place. You could, if you like on state, you could do a concert in a big place like that. If everybody's spaced out, that's an outdoor venue.
Mm-hmm.
You could actually do something in places like that if they would allow that to happen.
And that's assuming that the knuckleheads, that buy the cheap seat way in the back don't want to come down.
Oh, well, I mean, they'd have to have things blocked off. They'd have you can only sit here and you can sit here and,
I was discussing this with a while back now with this buddy of mine in Portugal, and he was talking about how they were going to take these theaters and have a whole row in between, in front of you empty and a row behind you empty, and then you'd have to be so many, like 4 seats over from you or your immediate family or partner, whoever. But after a while, when you do the numbers, it doesn't make sense to put on a concert and do all the promotion or whatever anymore because of that. That's the tough part of it.
The only way it would work was it would have to trickle down everybody, pay cut for everybody. And doing that opens another can of worms.
Oh, yeah.
So like in Broadway, as Tony could tell you, if they agreed to say, okay, we're going to work for 65% of what we used to make. And they're cutting the seat prices 65%, right? And all of that. And then things clear up and then you got to battle to get back to 70%. You know, it's going to be a battle to get back up to where it was, you know, and it'll be the demise of the music business as we know if we do that, I think. Not that I would think ill of anybody in a production position, but
producers would never do that.
I know that New York, I mean, it's tricky because first of all, it's a, you know, the weather, you know, and actually now I almost have the heat on. It's like 50 degrees here. So, I mean, our window for playing outside is much smaller than other places. And on top of which, like in Manhattan, the theaters are so tiny and crowded, and there's no, you know, luxurious like backstage area. I mean, the seats are just literally, you're on top of each other. So I think the selling every other seat thing is not going to work. And I know that the producers are already beating down the doors of the unions. They're preparing for some sort of concession. So we'll have to see what that looks like. But it's going to be ugly, as you said.
Yeah, the only way that would work is, I mean, obviously we'd have to hold firm on, okay, this is for this date to this date, and then it goes back to what it was, or we renegotiate depending on where we're at, you know, and give them another 6 months or whatever. I mean, it would be good, you know, obviously to get people back to work on some level, you know. You know, I don't really do theater anymore here, but neither does anybody else. But, I worked at the Pantages Theater for 21 years, basically, and then there was a changing of the guard. You know, my boss got let go for a number of lame reasons, you know, from management. Because he, you know, our contractor there, I have to say, Brian Miller, man, he took care of business at the Pantages Theater, man. He took care of us, man. If somebody fell down or something, man, there was a rail there by that staircasing the next day. You know, and we made every dime we were supposed to make. If there was some kind of penalty for something because they were using a virtual orchestra or they were trying to pull some, he would, even though he was management, he was very fair. And I don't think management liked that as much as as we liked it, you know. Yeah. And so anyway, they brought this other cat in, and I'll just say cat, and I'm not going to use any more adjectives for him or anything, but this young guy, and immediately he just, you know, I stopped getting called after 21 years of working. So the last show I did there was with Paul. Yep. We did, and matter of fact, when we did Aladdin there, that's right when that happened. That was that guy's first show. We right in the, you know, Brian had actually hired us for that. And then, so it all changed. You remember the first rehearsal when we were meeting that guy for the first time, Paul?
Oh yeah, it was so strange because we had just put down all the cash for like 3 months of Airbnb, like $7,000. And I think, Wayne, you called me the night before and said, have you heard anything? What's going on? What happened with Brian Miller? You know, he's gone.
Yeah.
He's not going to be contracting. And somebody else says we didn't know a name. We showed up at rehearsal, and I think the new guy didn't come in for the first couple hours. So we're like, well, okay, we're rehearsing, but do I still have a gig tomorrow? It was very strange.
And I loved working there, but you know, to be honest with this, Tony can tell you, you know, doing 8 shows a week is a grind. So I was never home. And so I kind of panicked when it happened because it's, you know, if there were several shows going that year, it would be a big part of my income, you know. And it ended up working out. You know, I lost that gig after that, but, you know, a bunch of guest artist things came in, and other work picked up, and Andy Martin said, don't worry about it, man, you're going to be fine. Think of all the stuff you turned down because you couldn't get out of the show for the weekend.
Yeah.
So it all kind of worked out. You know, in New York, it's another situation. They depend on the shows a lot more than we do out here because it's a big part of their life out there, where we only have a couple of theaters out here we only have 2 major theaters here that would pay, you know, a scale worthy of doing 8 shows a week. You know, there's a lot of small civic light opera kind of things, but there's only 2 here.
So a question to compare between the 2 scenes, LA and New York, as far as doing the shows, not to belabor the show thing, but what are the percentages and how do they differ from New York to LA for how much you're allowed to sub out? I think it's pretty substantial, right, for you, Tony?
Yeah, Tony, you take this first.
Yeah, it's scale-wise, it's a completely different thing. I think we're way behind the 8 ball in New York. I think we make less than LA, we make less than Chicago. What I guess makes up for that is that it's pretty much there's so much of it that it's almost like constant work. In terms of taking off, though, we can take off 50% of the time.
Oh wow!
Unfortunately, along with that, you know, goes like I think to stay on the health plan A, you'd have to play, I guess, an average of 5.7 shows a week just to stay on the health plan. So there's that. So there's other considerations, but we could take, it's super liberal in terms of taking off. I mean, obviously you don't get paid, but if you want to do other gigs, once you're out of that lock-in period at the beginning of the run, you're pretty much free to do whatever you want, which is great.
It's changed from this show with the Pantages, and one of the problems that the Pantages was having was because we didn't do 3-year runs very often, or 2-year runs, or longer runs. We did 3-week runs and 6-week. But after the first week, after opening night, we could sub out 50%, even on a 2-week run. And not that anybody did that, but I was kind of one of the culprits that subbed out more than, there were a few of us subbed out quite a bit, but always within the rules. And I would never, and I even asked the contractor, okay, he goes, well, it'd be better if I had you here tonight, I'd say, okay. But one of the complaints from management was they had a couple of problems on some other shows, like on Hamilton, and some things where we had a conductor that came in that was just a complete problem. And when the subs would come in, he would just make their life completely difficult. So all this stuff started going into show reports. So when they fired Brian Miller, it was on that basis, kind of like, well, the subbing. And so they wanted to change that policy. So what it ended up being, well, Paul even remembers, when I subbed out and he called me, I was doing a guest artist thing in Michigan somewhere. He goes, your sub was not appropriate. You have to be here tonight. I go, oh, dude, I'm in Michigan. I'm not going to be there. And you can't tell me, and otherwise, and Paul can tell you the sub was fine, and the next night he would be great, even if he missed a couple of things the first night.
Oh, sure. Same thing happened with Andy as well, if you remember.
Yeah.
With a very prominent sub that is amazing. So, yeah, the management was just trying to, make it really difficult on everybody.
They were making a case against us. So what they ended up getting, though, after that show is they wanted me to be on the board, but I was like, I don't want any part of this crap, But they now they can sub out 30%, but your sub, once they've subbed twice, is now an alternate and not just a sub. And when your alternate's there, it doesn't count against your sub time because they're a regular. So they actually, we're going to show them, we'll give them only 30%, but it's better because you could sub out, you could get your alternate in there after the opening night, get your sub in there for 3 times and miss the rest of the run and have it not count against your sub time. You think about how stupid that is.
Yeah.
Now this contractor would never let that happen, even though he would have to, but he's been a problem on many levels with, calling musicians for the show and saying, when do you need to sub out? Well, you can't sub out that night. Well, you can't do that. You hire the person for the gig and they play by the rules, so that's what's kind of going on with the theater scene at the Pantages anyway. I think the Amundsen might still have a 50% rule, but the contractor there would never let that happen either.
So it's by the theater. It's not necessarily it's not a union thing.
It is a union thing, but it's by the theater. They all have different contracts, So but they all want the same thing, of course. But that's it hasn't been as much of a problem at the. I mean, people doing those shows that are playing there that they want to do the work and are available for it. They're there most of the time. The Pantages was kind of a lot of musicians that work a lot in town there, doing a lot of sessions and things. So we'd be in and out of there a lot, and it was really never a problem, really. I mean, we always had good subs and, for the most part. And I will agree with, as Paul can tell you, we had a couple of subs come in during Aladdin, and they're really good players, but I would get pissed off because they weren't taking care of business during the audit. When I go in and audit a show, man, I always just do a second audit for free on my own. Just I want to make sure I come in when I audit. I want to make sure I nail everything and the conductor doesn't even notice I'm there. So
that's one difference there. So you guys get paid to audit the book.
They get paid half scale.
Oh. Okay.
And so half base scale. So we pay them though. Now at the Amundsen pays them and keeps them on payroll, gives them half scale. I always just pay my subs, a couple of $100, and I go, here you go. And then I'll pay them for another audit. I go, do you need another audit? And I'll pay them for another one. we paid one of the sub because we had problems. These good players came in, but they would miss a couple of things because they just needed one more look at it. And then, as you know, BA he was on, the management's team there, and he was kind of all over us. And any little thing going on, man, he was all over it. And he didn't want people back. And an oboe player didn't like his vibrato, so he didn't want him back. And then, so we had some subs not allowed back that were really good players. They just needed another shot. So I finally brought in a guy, Mike Rocha, and I said, you're going to do 3 audits. Okay, I'm going to pay you for 3 audits. And you're going to come in here and you're going to nail the show, right? And of course, Paul, he did, right?
Oh, that was Stever.
Oh, it's Mike Stever, excuse me.
Yeah.
Mike Stever. Yeah, both great players.
Both great players, yeah.
But he came in and he got 3 audits and he came in and he was perfect, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, great.
What I like to, and I don't know about you, Tony, but when I audit, I bring in my practice mute and I get the music up on a music stand and I play the show on my practice mute.
Wow.
So I can see the conductor and I'm going to know, and I'm going to make note of what I missed.
But don't you sit next to the regular?
Sometimes you're behind them. Like at the Amundsen, you sit behind them and they can't hear you. There's plenty of room. Or at the Pantages, you could sit on the floor with a music stand below the riser, which is what we had to do a lot of times because there wasn't much room. It's a giant theater with this giant pit. There's no room. It's weird, but anyway, that's how I audit a show. And so when I come in, I've actually played the show. And so I think I always encourage people to do that. I think it's a good way to learn a show. So.
And what's the audit policy in New York that you don't get paid to audit, Tony?
No, you just kind of sit there and watch it go down. And sometimes, there are some cases where I went into Wicked. I had maybe 4 months between shows, and my friend John Owen said, "Hey, you want to come in and look at the book at Wicked?" And I said, "Sure." And he had already given me a few dates, and I looked at the first act, and it was, there weren't 3 beats in one tempo. It was just all over them, and you had to basically memorize the book. So I said to him in intermission, I said, "Man, I don't know if I can do this. I mean, just the amount, not that I couldn't play it, but just the amount of time it would take to get this together." So I just told him at the end of the show, I said, "Look, man, I appreciate the offer, but I can't, I don't have the time to put in, I would have to play this at my house 15 times just to get it." And he said, "No, I totally get it. No problem." He gave the dates away. And then a year later, whatever, I was off for a long time, and I actually did put in the time. And now now I could probably walk in and sub there without a problem. But at the time, it was like, wow, this is really tricky.
Yeah, it's a kind of a show. It does move around a lot, and they slam on the brakes in the middle of phrases, and if you're not ready for it, it's like playing a regular opera, man. It's just I don't know what's wrong with these conductors. Just set the tempo and let's go. Make the singer go with you, for God's sakes,
Yeah, if only.
Oh, sorry. We had this guy Dennis Castellano, who I always loved, man, because we were doing ragtime, and then we had this diva dude on the stage, man, that was just milking. And he said, and he just said, whatever the guy's name was, and he goes, "Look," he goes, "I got 15 players down here. It's a lot easier to move you than it is to them. Can you just sing this line in tempo, please?" And he just told him. He made him sing it in tempo. And it was awesome. It was a lot easier to move one person than it is to move 15.
Of course.
So.
But Paul, as you said, we don't get paid to audit. You just kind of go and just watch it happen. And but sometimes people will, say, "Hey, can I check this out again?" Just because they want to do a good job. It's in their best interest to, eyeball the conductor in person rather than on a video and stuff. So.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah, and how, Tony, how are on some of these shows? I'm sure different conductors some are cool, and if somebody screws something up a little bit, it's not a big deal to them. They know they'll get it the next time, or they might give them the glare, or they might laugh it off or whatever. I'm sure it just depends on who you're dealing with, I guess.
Yeah, I think, I would say, it's hit or miss. Some are great. Some, you'll get it next time. And others are, they want
to have a meeting about it. Yeah.
They want it exactly like the regular day one. even if they don't want it better than the regular. They want it to be the regular. Like if it's too loud, they want the regular to be too, or the sub to be too loud.
Right.
Too soft, they want the sub to be too soft. So it's one of those industries. It's like it can unfortunately be amusical because they just want what they're used to hearing, and they do not like unpredictability. So
they want the consistency, is what you're saying. So with that in mind, I mean, just going back to what you just said previously, have you guys been involved? I mean, not in a rehearsal, but in a run where there's just been an absolute train wreck on one of these major shows?
Of course. I mean, stuff happens, when a singer drops 12 bars and goes on to another thing or something. And we've actually, haven't had to stop for 2 minutes, but there's been a couple of instances where stuff's happened on stage.
Tony, I'm sure for you with, Spider-Man flying out of the sky, falling to their demise, right?
If we got through one act without a stoppage, it was a miracle. Really.
Is that right?
Really?
It became the thing, like it was kind of a NASCAR vibe in the audience. Like they came to see the train wreck, and if it wasn't wreck, they would bum out, Oh man! Right.
Nobody fell. Nobody was killed today. God dang it!
Yeah.
So aside from show playing, now during this time, and just aside from even aside from COVID, like, Tony, I know you, I've heard some of your beautiful arrangements. I know you're a great arranger and writer. And Wayne, you were talking about, you've moved over into doing more of these guest appearance things and stuff. Are there other things you're doing outside of the show playing and your standard kind of stuff that you were doing that you're working on for the future that you want to head towards and do more of?
Right, Tony, why don't you feel that?
Well, I mean, as Wayne alluded to earlier, I mean, for us, like shows were kind of the bread and butter. So the bulk of the income is gone. It used to be that your show playing would supplement your recording income, and now it's completely morphed so that it's the opposite. So any recording stuff you get is kind of gravy at this point. But the studios are starting to open a little bit. A few of them, not all of them. Our biggest one, Power Station, is now owned by Berkeley, and the construction of that, it was due to be completed now, and unfortunately with COVID that's been pushed back. But there are some smaller studios that have opened, and we're doing some movies and stages, like the rhythm section will come in, and the horns will come in, and the reeds will come in different days, and kind of make that happen like that. But it's and some stuff from home. I mean, now we're all it used to be we all wanted to be Wayne Bergeron. Now we have to be Wayne Bergeron and Phil Ramone or whatever recording is. And so now we're struggling to like figure out preamps and things that we never thought about before. Like Wayne had a studio for a long time before this, but for a lot of us, we're just kind of thrown into the fire with that. So I'm doing a few things at home. I did something yesterday and something the day before, and now it's a little bit of a lull, but it'll kind of dribs and drabs. It'll pick up.
Yeah, shows that I was doing, like regular shows at Fox, like Family Guy and American Dad, I do those from home now. And I do all 3 trumpet parts, and Alan Kaplan does all the trombone parts, and a couple of woodwind players do and Walter Murphy does mock-ups, orchestra mock-ups anyway before every show, like a full orchestra mock-up with samples, and then we play it with a 45-piece orchestra.
Now, would he have been doing those mock-ups prior to this? COVID
yeah,
stuff
he
anyway?
he did them anyway to play for Seth and for the production, make sure that they were hearing. And so those a couple of the studios have opened. The only studio here that's really opened up is, well, a couple of them. East West has I did something there, a social distancing date recently for a movie. And then at Fox, we did this Minions movie a few weeks ago. And it was just brass, of course, and the trumpets were literally 10 feet apart with plexiglass dividers between us, hand sanitizer stations at every thing. They cleaned up, they disinfected the room on the breaks. We had a COVID team there. Now I'm doing this Clipper, the Big Red Dog movie coming up next week, where we're going to Fox again. It'll be the same thing. We'll do the brass separate, and we have to have a COVID test for this one. So I'm
Do
going
they
in
take your
Monday.
temperature before you come through the door?
Yeah, before you even get on the lot, from a distance, they got a thing. You just open your window, and
Wow.
and then when you get to the studio, they take your temperature again. And so it's pretty strict. Now, actually, I have to have a test on Monday, actual COVID test. And but that's the only major big studio that's open in LA. Like Sony is not open, which is our biggest, room. It was MGM at one point, and they're not doing anything there. And Warner Brothers is not doing anything there. So Fox is kind of the only game in town for a real big. But since we're not doing everything together anyway, you could do the same. You could do the same thing in Capitol and be spread out pretty good if we needed to.
So is there a bulk of things that maybe either of you guys do? Is like, would you say you do more recordings for artists, more recordings for television, more recordings for that are movie related, or is it just, or jingles, or is it all just sort of
What's a jingle?
whatever happens,
I think that was an 80s term, like mullet.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Well,
Jingles, boy.
commercials, whatever.
Yeah.
You talking about now or?
Well, I guess just in general. I guess you could say now, but I'm just in general. I'm just curious. Is there a big difference in what's in the types of things being recorded on the East Coast as in New York as opposed to Los Angeles?
I don't know. I mean, we just did a movie called Respect, which is based on the life of Aretha Franklin, and the music was amazing. It was really fun and great. But I've done maybe 2 jingles since COVID. It's been we've been sequestered at home, and I've done a couple vanity projects for singers that want to just do a thing. And hey, could you put some horns on this? And I'll do that. So it's kind of just a microcosm of what normally happens, when pre-COVID times for us anyway in New York.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing. Jingles are kind of a thing of the past out here for the most part. I mean, I used to do, I remember like 25 years ago, man, Elias Brothers Music was here. They had an East Coast office and I would go there and do demos. I'd go from room to room in their studio and do a demo for all the different composers. And I'd be on my way home and I'd get called back. Hey, we just got picked up. We're going to, and I would go back there. And then I would get a call from another studio in Santa Monica that same day. And I would go do a demo or do a jingle. There was a lot of stuff going on. That just kind of has gone away for the most part. I mean, I've done a couple of jingles, but not in a while. But bulk of my work is movies and television, and some artist stuff, but it just really depends. It's mostly movie work, but that's also changed. I mean, as I get older, and new composers come in, and younger players and new players that have moved into the scene. So I've seen my work shift around a little bit, which is why I went into guest artist work and stuff. I mean, I saw the writing on the wall on this a long time ago, and Bobby Shue told me, you should get yourself set up to do this because this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. You're going to get older and you're going to become irrelevant, And so I kind of planted the seed in the guest artist thing a long time ago. I mean, I've done 20 guest artist things in a year before. So, and I turn a bunch of them down. So I have that in my hip pocket if I need a career. If I decide, we're actually talked about, at some point moving, and looking into places in New Mexico or in Utah or some places a little more affordable to live. When I decide, or the music business decides I'm done here, it kind of depends on that, I guess. And then I just need an airport, and if I'm still doing the Oscars, I can still fly in and do the Oscars, whatever, So, I used to do a lot of the live TV shows too. I used to do the Emmys when they had an orchestra a long time ago. I did quite a few of those, and the Golden Globe and the SAG Awards were always pre-records when I was doing them anyway, and they kind of went away. One of the composers lost the gig, and so I don't do those anymore. So I've watched some of that live work. I still do the Oscars, of course, but Latin Grammys and things like that I did at one point. They started doing that in Vegas, and so stuff goes away. And also, as Tony can tell you, technology has changed our business a lot, and the thing I worry about with all the recording at home we're doing now is they go, look, we can do it this way and save all this money on these big studios, and these big studios will close. you know, as the integrity of the business gets less, as the John Williams and people like that go away and move on, you know, to the afterlife, the people with integrity like that want to do it with a 100-piece orchestra at Sony, that here comes the young computer writers when they would rather do it this way.
Right.
It's easier. So I'm afraid it will become the norm at some point. Maybe not just because of COVID, but down the road, there's some people are going to look at this, go, man, listen to the tracks Tony Kadleck did right here, man, and he sent them off to a sax player buddy. Man, the horn section sounds amazing. They go, why do we need to do it another way?
Well, and speaking of that, I was going to ask this earlier since Tony brought this up. You know, for you've both started you have your own recording systems in your house. So what do you use? What sort of, tell us a little bit about your systems and how you came to choose those. You know, what does somebody need? What are the basics of what players need to start their own recording, you know, home recording studio?
Go ahead, Tony.
I would defer to Wayne just because I'm so much of a novice at this point. I'm just using entry level stuff, really. I have a good mic, but I would go with Wayne, whatever Wayne says.
Well, you know, it's the equipment, the gear has gotten really good. The cheaper gear, I mean, it really has. You know, Focusrite makes these little 2i2 things, these 2-channel things. I just bought one.
Yeah, I have one of those as well.
Because I'm going to use it for my mobile rig. Because I missed Family Guy when I was up in at the beach house on a little vacation at my father-in-law's beach house. And I could have easily just done it from there. All I had to do was bring my mic, a mic cable, and this thing, and a laptop with Pro Tools on it. And I could have knocked it out from there and made that money. So I'm going to be putting my little portable rig together. But at home here, I mean, I've been doing this for a little bit. I started off with an M-Box Pro, you know, which was kind of a basic setup, but it was pretty good, you know. And then I started getting more serious about it. So I have my stuff's not real extravagant, but I have an Apollo 8P, which I like the Universal Audio stuff because they great plugins and things you can get. I've got 8 channels of stuff here. So we've recorded trumpet ensemble stuff in my house here before, 4 in here and 4 in the living room, you know, which I don't really like to do, but we can. I put all my gear away because nobody's coming over here for a while, so I only have my own setup here now. But usually I'd have 4 mics set up here. And I brought trombone sections over and trumpet sections and stuff like that. So the Apollo has really nice stuff, and it has good mic pre's and it has good converters. I wouldn't say they're incredible converters and incredible mic pre's, but they're pretty darn good for, you know, home studio stuff. I ended up buying, because I at least wanted to have a couple of channels of pretty high-end stuff going in. So I bought this Burl B2 Bomber analog digital converter. So 2 of my channels are that. So whenever I'm recording stuff on myself here, I'm using that converter, and I'm using that through my Focusrite ISA2 mic pre, which is not the most expensive mic pre you can buy, but I would work at Andy Waterman's studio here, Umbrella Sound. He's moved to Nashville since, and I always liked the sound he got on the trumpets. I go, man, he'd use Royers or, or some kind of ribbon mic or Coles usually, but it always sounded great. And I go, man, what do you do? Man, he goes, I got a Millennium mic pre here, and I've got Neve. He goes, I got all this stuff. He goes, on trumpets, this is what I always use. And he goes, and they've got a rack mount, and it's about $1,000 for 2 channels. So I bought 2 of them, so I have 4 channels of that. Easy to use. It's a no frills mic pre. I wish I could turn my computer around and show you. But, it's very easy to use. There's not EQ on it and all this, these mic pre's, you can really get involved. It's not really necessary. The trumpet doesn't really need EQ. I mean, I rarely do I put any EQ on myself at all. And so I use that, and it gets a pretty, I send stuff off to clients, and they're always really happy with what's going on here. And I've A-B'd a bunch of different microphones here too. I've A-B'd like some AEA microphone, ribbon microphones against my Royer. And I would hear, I go, man, AEA sounds pretty good, but then I would send them 2 tracks with 3 different mics, and they always picked the Royer.
Which model of the Royer is it?
I have a 121 and a 122. I have 122 Mark II set up now. And I also have this, there's another Royer back here that's this is kind of a less expensive one. It's a Royer 101. It looks like, let's see, can you see where?
Mm-hmm. You can see that.
Let's see. And it's I think you can get that mic for I mean, I got it for like $500. I think you can get that mic for $700, $750. It's the same ribbon as a 121. The capsule's made in China. So they assemble it at the Burbank plant, but the whole outside, so it's a lot cheaper, and it's in a heavier duty thing. So I used to travel with it. It was a good travel roar. But then I got sick of bringing a mic to the gig with me, and because the sound guys would all suck anyway, and it didn't really matter, you know. So I just use whatever they have on the gig.
So what are the differences between the 121 and the 122?
This exact same ribbon. There's a passive amp in the 122, so you need to have phantom power.
Okay.
You don't have to turn your mic pre up as hot. So if you've got a tube mic pre, for instance, I used to have a UA 610, 2610, and you'd have to really crank that thing up, and then you'd get some kind of noise, like tube noise. I mean, and it's desirable by some people, you know, they would like that. But I'd have to really crank that thing up with the 121, you know. But with the 122, you don't have to lean on the preamp so hard. So I use the 122 just in general. The 122, the 121's in a box over there, and if I need to break it out for something, I do. The AEA mic I gave to Chloe Rollins, Tony, in New York, you know, and she was here, and she was looking for a mic, and I said, well, here, and I gave her a little. It's got its own little mic pre too, AEA, for that mic, and I just said, well, here, just pay me when you can, and then COVID hit, of course, but I see she's recording a bunch of stuff on it, and I'm going, yeah, make that money, girlfriend. But it's a really good mic as well. So I mean, you don't, you know, not to get long-winded, but you don't have to spend a crap load of money now to get a decent sounding setup. You just need the signal going in. You know, you need good mic pre, good converter, good mic is what you need, you know.
And a good source, a good sounding trumpet.
Yeah. Well, that's best too. I mean, something like this. You know, something with the quality sound like that.
Yeah, when it's really centered like that, it just prints so well.
It prints, man. It's
yeah, those lessons I've been giving you are really paying off.
Yeah, it prints really well. Oh man. So anyway, that's my setup. Tony, I think you're using Logic. I'm using Pro Tools. I think Tony's using Logic, which is great. My wife just got it. I mean, it's better than Pro Tools for some things, actually. For a composer, I think it's better.
Yeah, for $200, it's a lot of bang for your buck.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah.
You know, I tried Pro Tools years ago, and I honestly I couldn't really. I tried it at a time where I was super busy, and I just didn't have time to devote to learning it. And now, you know, I have nothing but time. So Logic's, and I have Logic now, and Pro Tools is outdated, the version I have. So I just said, let me just jump into this. So I use a Coles ribbon mic, which is great, and just, you know, just dump it into Logic and hope for the best. You know.
What do you use for your interface, Tony?
I have the Focusrite.
Oh, you do that one, the 2i2. Yeah, and I've heard stuff Tony's recorded. You know, it sounds great, and especially, you know, if you get it going in pretty clean, whoever's going to produce it later. I mean, they'll have all these great plugins. They can put you in another room. You know, I have this Ocean Way Studios plug-in here, so I can put myself in Ocean Way Studio A with a room mic, and I can move the room mic 10 feet away, and I can kind of dial it. And then you put, you know, a Lexicon call on that, you know, and then maybe on the tail end of that put, you know, you can mix different reverb. You know what you're doing, and people that really know what they're doing can make the stuff sound magnificent. I'm producing this Tom Kubis big band CD. And the engineer that's actually doing the final mixes, he combines 3 different reverbs, and the tail of the reverb is the Capitol echo chamber. And it sounds so elegant, man. It's 3 reverbs mixed, but it just sounds natural and elegant. So if somebody really knows what they're doing, they can take chicken shit and make it into chicken salad. I mean, you know, it can really sound great. You know, Tony and I I'm not mixing from here. I'm sure Tony's not mixing things. He's sending them off, and they're being mixed by other people. So I'm doing the same thing here, basically. So I haven't made that investment of that gear you need. That being on the post-production end of stuff is where it really gets expensive. You know, the stuff you really need to mix correctly and knowing how to do all this is a big learning curve.
Mm-hmm. So for a lot of our our members here, I'm sure they would find this very interesting. I've seen a number of different videos. I've been involved in a number of, recording situations as well, but everybody has their sort of their things. But I've seen some of these old videos of Jerry Hay recording horns and read some things on how he's recorded them as far as mic placement goes. So when you guys are at home doing your own thing, either by yourselves, and maybe there's a difference, so maybe you could explain it. If you have, say you were doing something with just a solo trumpet yourself, and then say you were doing something with, I don't know, 3 or 4 trumpeters, how would your mic, what determines how you like to place your mic? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Go ahead, Tony. What do you do?
A lot of it is trial and error because again, I'm so new to this. I'll put it 4 inches away. I'll put it 8 inches away. I'll put it 12 inches away, and I'll just play a bunch of stuff on it, and then record it all, and then go back and say, oh, this sounds good. Oh wow, and often it'll be surprising. The results and what I would have thought would have been the best way to do it is completely the worst way to do it. So a lot of it is trial and error. At least I found anyway. And again,
depends on your room,
Yeah, exactly. I get a giant. This room is not treated for performance, so I get a giant quilt and I throw it behind my mic. And I just it's super high tech, and I just kind of blow it. Hope it doesn't bang around in the walls. So
yeah, I treated this room a little bit. You can this French door is here actually, but I bought these panels from Acousto, the company called Acousto Mat, and they're very solid, dense foam for soundproofing and for some. I don't want to be blowing into glass, obviously. And then I got a couple of sound batteners here, and then there's a window over here that's got Acousto. That's a big window that's also got more of this stuff in it. So I have a little investment of a few $1,000s in that stuff, but that was more for soundproofing than treating the room because I got neighbors and stuff. So is this room ideal for sound? Not necessarily, but it's not overly live or anything. Tony, I've found from experimenting around, just depending on what I'm doing, like if I wanted to make like a Till Bronner kind of sound or Jack Sheldon kind of sound, I found that if I get close to the mic but off to the side of it and get the sound from the side of the bell and play soft, it creates a certain kind of sound, where you get a little bit more of the noise, which we're usually trying to avoid.
Give you that kind of smoky, cloudy kind of sound.
And it picks that up better, So I recorded a few things like that. But generally, I mean, as Tony can tell you, well, you guys know your trumpet players, but sound develops on the other side of the bell several feet away. So all the noise and all the stuff that's wrong with our sound is at the bell. So if you put the microphone right there, you're recording that. That's why we sound so airy, and funky. And you can fix that with a little reverb and stuff. It kind of goes away, but it's better I think it's always better to have some space between the bell of the trumpet, and then not to record too hot. I mean, I like to record at -10, and maybe it'll bump up a little above there when I'm playing hard. There's no reason to record loud. There used to be a thing, oh man, we got to saturate the tape. We got to get really hot. With the digital thing, that's very different because you need headroom. If they need to turn you up, it's going to clip digitally. It's very unforgiving. So the better quality sound comes from recording not as hot. And Louis Dowswell actually, because I always liked the way everything he's recorded sounds so good.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of do what he does. I was doing this before him, but he kind of showed me, he goes, oh, buy this Apollo. He told me what to buy. And then he actually uses 2 mics. He uses a UA why am I spacing? 67, U67 and a Royer together, or a Coles together. And he gets a really fat sound. He's got to figure out how to do all that, but he's one who told me about mic placement a little bit and stuff, and not to record too hot. So anybody that's listening that wants to, do a home studio. I see a lot of people on Facebook and stuff going, yeah, all you need is a laptop and a USB mic. Well, that's not really true. you do have to step it up a little bit from there, because it's just not going to sound very good. It's not going to be able to take it. So you need to have a minimal investment. But I say for $1,500, you could probably get a pretty respectable little home setup, minimal, thing that sounds pretty good. You get that UA, the Apollo Twin. I mean, it's got all the same preamps that this thing's got in it, and if you want to up it up a little more, get a separate mic pre, but it's not really necessary. The stuff keeps getting better and better, and eventually hardware will be a thing of the past at some point, because this stuff will keep getting better and better and better. I'd like to buy a Berkowski reverb. I don't know if you know about that, Tony, but on my solo CD, all the solos went through a Berkowski reverb. A friend of mine loaned me one, so when we were mixing, and that reverb, to my ears, is like the premier reverb for a lot of things, man. It just has got this beautiful, you don't even notice it's there.
That's what I used that on my last recording. And then I actually tried to communicate it a little bit with Chris Bodie's sound guy. I forgot his name right now, but he said that's what, I mean,
Chris, Mr. Echoplex, I think is what he goes.
Well, he tours with that, but I mean, yeah, it's used to a great extent, but there's certain, it's a great piece of gear.
It's expensive. I mean, they're not cheap. They're not cheap. It's,
we had to rent it just to bring it in, because this guy had all kind of different kinds of reverbs in the studio out here. But he said, "You want this? It's going to sound great." So,
but even Tommy Vicari, when we were mixing, we brought this in, and he's got all kinds of great stuff. When we were mixing, he's got everything. But he didn't have, and he goes, "Yeah, I've heard about this." He's kind of old school. And he put it up and he goes, "Yeah, this is," he goes, "We'll be getting a couple of these." So it's really good. And Al Schmidt thinks they're great. And I mean, a lot of, so I thought about buying one, and spending the $4,000, and that's for 2 channels, but having it, and you can rent it, you can rent it out to people that want to use it.
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
It pay for itself. Yeah.
So getting back, we had talked a little bit before, sort of just throwing things out, but I'm just curious how things are now. I know that when Tony and us spoke last, Tony was like, "Well, I haven't touched my trumpet in a few weeks, and I can't get inspired to play much and this and that right now." But now that a number of months have passed by, for each of you, what has your average practice day been like? Not necessarily the gigs you're doing or the recordings you're doing, but are you back up to your regular type of practice type of thing? And if so, what is it? What's it like?
Go ahead, Tony.
Well, I was afraid you asked me first. No, I'm back in it. Again, it's kind of hit or miss. I've been taking time off and enjoying the time off, and then I come back and I miss it, and I'm now school started. I'm more immersed in it. I'm going to teach after this tonight. So I'm getting more acclimated to playing every day, which sounds ridiculous after playing every day for 35 years or whatever. But yeah, I'm kind of getting back into it. I was in a bad way about 3 days ago. I hadn't played in a week, and I had to play something, and it had like a high A with a shake on it, and it was like, wow. I mean, you're lucky to get a high A. Forget a shake.
Yeah, exactly.
So I eked one out. It was not the first pass, I can tell you that. But after that, I said, okay, I got to reel this in and get it together. So since then, the last few days, I've been hitting it a little harder, and it feels good, because it's so disconcerting to pick it up and feel like, because my mind is thinking of Tony in March, not Tony in September. So I pick it up and I go to play, and it doesn't sound anything like what I'm used to, and it doesn't feel anything like I'm used to. It's like, all right, so now I'm kind of into a little bit of a groove, and with school going, I can't go in and demonstrate something for my kids and crap all over it. So I have to kind of keep it together.
So what's your practice schedule to ramp it back up again to Tony in March?
Well, I'm still not even close to that, but not that was all that anyway. But I'm just kind of I mean, after a while, you know what you have to do to get it together. You know, okay, I need to. You can tell, like, I need to pound. I need to just get like some scar tissue built up, or I need to lighten up or get my facility together. Just tons of lip slurs, soft. I just need to have it on my chops, basically. That I know that's what's going to help, and it already has in a few days. So if I can give it, another 3-4 days, I might get close to March, but we'll see. It remains to be seen how much the time off will have impacted me. Again, to bang out a couple, I have the afternoon free, to bang out a couple jingles here or whatever is not so hard. But like playing a 4-hour gig now, no, that's not going to happen.
Yeah. So Tony, I'm not sure what you do. I took a lesson recently with a friend of mine, Burnett Dillon, who's a retired trumpet player who did a lot of studio work here, because I was going through the cancer stuff. I got so sick from the chemo that I couldn't play for a couple of weeks. I mean, didn't have a desire to play. And then I started playing the third week into the treatments, but then the radiation was starting to fry my throat. But I still practiced. And I couldn't hit a G on top of the staff. It hurt so bad. So I just worked on other things. And as I'm healing now, and I'm 2.5 months out of this stuff, I'm asking questions, because I feel the same way you do. I'm trying to figure out, I know what I have to do to get it back, but it doesn't feel the same, and it doesn't sound the same to my ears. And so I'm kind of reaching. My wife goes, "Oh, you sound the same. It sounds," and so I don't know if, my hearing got screwed up from the radiation, or, I feel like I can hear okay, but it just feels different, and my lips are thinner. So I've been going at it very carefully, because I've had a cyst on my lip before. As you know, when I lost weight, when I went through my divorce, I was pounding on this, and I actually caused the cyst because my lips were thinner and I was weaker because I'd lost weight. And I'm kind of in that same place now. I'm 40 pounds down from where I was when I started this in March, when I was diagnosed. So at this point now, my throat doesn't hurt anymore when I play, but I'm going at this very systematically, and like you had soft lip slurs, trying to set a foundation so I can make a really soft attack. I talked to Tony and Paul about this last time, and I'll show you this, Tony, but Burnett told me to get a Dennis Wick practice mute, because it's the worst practice mute ever made. Because it doesn't respond, you know what I mean? It's quiet, but it doesn't respond. And he said, do air attacks until you can make this thing respond quickly. And so I've been doing this every day. That's how I start. I go. And this mute, when I started doing that, a few weeks ago, whenever it was, I saw you guys and I started doing this, I picked this mute up and I was going, I mean, it does not respond. I mean, you really have to get small. And he said, just do that for like 5 minutes and get it going. And then crescendo to what you think is fortissimo and diminuendo, and get the feel of that. And he goes, and when you're done, take the mute out and play the trumpet exactly the same way as if the mute's in. And man, and my response has improved, I mean, a lot in a few weeks. And he said, if you get used to doing this, you will never miss a soft entrance. He goes, you will never miss it. He said, it's like like somebody swinging 2 bass to get warmed up, and then all of a sudden, oh man. And so I've just religiously been doing that every day now. It's kind of how I start. And I think it sets a good foundation for where we need to start. And then I'm like Tony, I do some regimented stuff, some lip flexibilities, and I do some tonguing. And then I go into some endurance stuff, because I know I just need to bang my chops up. And whether that just means noodling around and keeping it on my face and playing some jazz licks and playing some arpeggios and trying to go up to a high F or high G or whatever, and just keeping it on my face. I started doing this little tonguing exercise I do, and I made it into an endurance exercise. And it's kind of like a Caruso thing, Tony, and or you can do, I haven't played here, but too much. But. I'm not warmed up, but you do that and you keep going to high C until you get to low C to high C, and you keep it on your face the whole time. And let me tell you something, after you've done that, you will feel like you've done something. I mean, there'll be spit coming out of the sides, but some days I can get through the whole thing. You know, sometimes I can get to the G and then I got to rest. But that's a good little workout, you know, so I'll do major one day and I'll do harmonic minor one day or whatever.
So
number
just to
97 of number 97 of Schlossberg.
It's kind of a modified Schlossberg.
Yeah.
It's laid out a
very
little
similar.
different.
Yeah.
This is something that Roy Main, the trombone player, used to give all the students. I'd hear all the trombone players playing that exercise.
Oh boy.
So it's C, B, C,
But I
B
came up
flat,
with
C, A. Okay, just
I just came up with the idea of always going back to the C. So I'm practicing other things like that too, that I'm doing. Always going back to, even, you know, doing Schlossberg, like, you know, doing that and then going, you know, and just doing them slowly, of course. And like I'm embarrassed. I haven't played here, so it feels like horrible. But I can even get those notes out, man. I couldn't play any of that shit. I'm finally getting over the break and getting over to the A, you know, but it does not feel like the A I had in March, of course, you know. But at least I can feel that it's there on my face now. But I think I just need to go at it, like Tony said. Man, we just need to play and play and play and get it back. But the only thing that we really get those chops from is playing gigs.
Yeah.
You know, we can sit here in the practice room or practice, we're blue in the face. It's not the same.
No,
Not the same.
I'm not terribly concerned, but it'll be an interesting experiment to see what happens. How it feels when I get back to the Frozen tour. You know, when that happens. Hopefully it does. But I literally haven't played outside of a practice mute except for Happy Birthday twice. I think I played the Coast Guard theme song once for a friend's niece who graduated from the academy, and I played taps. And that's been it. So
wow.
A total of what, maybe 2 minutes of actual open horn playing since March 11th. So we'll see what happens.
You've been playing a lot, though. I mean, just muted, but you've been playing a lot, right?
I have been, yeah. I've been really enjoying that and getting into some things that I'd either put way on the back burner for years, or things that I started this Jazz Everyone improvisation program from this old guy, Willie Thomas. Yeah, sorry, I had a brain fart there. Willie Thomas. And it's been fantastic. So I've been really having fun doing that, where I just couldn't spend the amount of, I mean, you guys know, all of you guys working, you can only spend so much of your chops and time, you know, before a gig, and you got to save it for the gig.
Well, and especially when you
got
got kids and running around to do, there's a lot of other things in life, you know, too, besides just playing the trumpet.
Right.
Yeah. It's I've done this kind of the same things. I went after them when I couldn't play above the staff. I started going after things that I used to kind of practice that I never really mastered, and things that, you know, we all know our weaknesses, you know. So I started going after Charlier number 14 because that doesn't go too high, and it's the you know, that one, and I practiced. I've gotten away from it a little bit, but I started playing that in a mute, you know, and just.
Oh, is that the third valve one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And when I was on the radiation table getting radiated, because I would try to do everything I could to keep my mind off what was actually happening in there, because you're pinned down. As I told you guys before, your face is pinned down with this thing. Did I show you this, Tony?
Yeah.
So it's my Halloween mask, you know. It's but so you're in there and you're getting radiated, and you know you're nervous and freaked out. So I would practice and I would play, and with my fingers on the while I would go. And I go over and practice the hard thing. And I'll just tell you, I don't know if I told this story last time I was here, but while I was on the table, if you ever have a problem when you're in radiation, they would stop the machine. Are you okay? If you make a noise or something. And they heard me going, and they heard me banging up. They go, are you okay? I go, I'm okay. Because I have a mouthpiece in too, so it's hard to talk. And they go, what were you doing? I go, I was practicing practicing this piece, and they were cracking up. They thought that was funny, you know. And so the next time I was doing it, they get on the speaker, they go, "What are you practicing?" But I would play along with the music or whatever. They would always play jazz when I came in. It turned out that this one guy was a jazz fan, and he'd been to festivals I played at and with bands, and so he'd always play jazz. And so I'd go, "Oh, that's an E minor. Let me improvise." So I'd be singing. I'd be going, trying to just to keep my mind. But that practice was kind of good because I'm a lot better at Charlie.
It's really good. I read an interesting.
I can actually kind of play that now.
I once read a really interesting story about a Chinese pianist who was considered a dissident, threw him in jail for, I don't know how long it was, a couple of years, something like this, big time concert pianist. And as soon as he got out, his management team had him back to work right away. I mean, and playing like all these, concertos and all the stuff that he was doing. And they said, wow, somebody interviewed him and said, how is it that you can just come back to it like that when you never had access to a piano in so many years or whatever? He said, every day, he said, I just sat down and I practiced every one of these pieces in my mind, my fingerings, I could visualize everything. And I've tried to incorporate a little bit of that into myself when I have times when I can't do it. And I don't think it's exactly the same, but I think it's really powerful.
Oh yeah, it definitely helped. I mean, there's things that I can do a little bit better now because I was doing that.
Well, I think what do they call it? Neural networks or something. You're programming your muscle memory, even though
don't get all educated on us.
Here I am trying to show off again.
Not impressed. Okay.
Well, you know better, Wayne.
Go. You can go and say some more big words. Go.
Oh.
Neuroplasticity.
Ooh. Onomatopoeia. How's that?
John would tell me to, if I had problems with any passage, he'd say, just play it left-handed. So I would try that and, see that, like thinking, what is this doing? And then you realize, oh, wow, yeah, it does actually help, but I don't know why.
Who told you that?
John McNeil.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
I learned that in his book. I learned that from his book, and it's like magic. And I think the reason they say is because the right side of your brain controls the left side and vice versa. And so we always use the left side to control our fingers,
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I've done a little bit of that with passages. It's interesting how you can, something that gives you trouble. There's different, like that's one thing you can do. The other thing is like, and you probably know about this, Tony, and Chuck Finley actually talked about this. If you've got a lick that goes, whatever, but it's like a weird fingering or something, he'd go da 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 da, then da 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 da, like change the rhythm around, and then play like triplet, and then go to play it the way it's written, and all of a sudden it fixes it.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Surrounding the beat, surrounding like if you've got something that's straight eighth notes or whatever. And then just going and make instead of going that's going da 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 or da 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 or da 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 da, and then doing that, and all of a sudden it fixes it. And I've done that with a number of things that I've had trouble playing, and it works. It definitely works.
I discovered that with clarinet players sitting next to them, and because they've got those nasty breaks to work over, and I was always curious, like how that might translate to trumpet, and boy, does it ever work.
Yeah. Kind of a neat thing,
Yeah, and it gets you, pretty fast.
Yeah, but it gets also. I think it's the same kind of thing. It just gets the brain thinking about it differently. Even rhythmically, changing something rhythmically, like Clark. If you're going da 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 da. There's people that put that in 7. They go do 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 do, and they or put it in 5, and all of a sudden it's the exact same fingerings. But it puts a whole new spin on it because of the way you're accenting the notes and subdividing it. And it can help them. There's a trumpet player, Jose Hernandez, who's a great mariachi trumpet player and just great classical trumpet player. He has a mariachi school and a restaurant here in LA. That's pretty amazing. And but he does all the stuff where he puts things in 7 like that. I watched him do a master class of this stuff, and it was really fascinating how fast he could play these things. Because he'd say 3/8. 5/8, 7/8, all the same exercise. But it's by where you put the accents, and it was, and it just sounded so different too. Same notes, same order. and I don't have time. I'm too old to take on this kind of crap, but I'm so fascinated by it.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of rounding the bend here, so let's do a little lightning round with these guys, Paul. We're gonna throw out some just some random things. Just let us know what first comes to your mind. Okay, so I'll start. Tony, you go first. What book are you reading right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm embarrassed to say I'm not reading a book right now.
Okay, I'm going to throw out another one then. Are you a morning person or a night person?
I'm a night person.
Okay.
Let me see. I asked the favorite place to visit in the world. Last time I know your answer, Wayne. Tony, what's yours?
I like Italy.
Okay.
Tuscany.
Cool. So Wayne, do you prefer texting or talking?
Talking.
So somebody else has to throw a question. What do I do? What do I do? Italian or Chinese, Tony?
Oh, Italian.
Okay.
Okay, Wayne, cake or pie?
Pie.
All right, that's all I got, I think.
Okay. Okay.
I got to say that really sucked, you guys.
Yeah.
I take responsibility. I brought it down by not having read a book recently. So
I just started reading Michelle Obama's book.
My wife is reading that. She really liked it. She said it was really good. So, well, thanks so much, guys, for being part of this and for sharing your time and your insights. And, I learned a lot here, actually, just during this hang, and it was very, very cool. So thank you so much for being part of it.
It's been awesome. Hey, so while I got a captive audience here, you mentioned Tony being a writer, right? And he's actually a really great writer. And and he's doing a chart on Nature Boy for me that was started 5 years ago. He's taking his time with it, so I'm busting his chops.
I'm up to bar 12. It's going very well.
So I like Tony's right, so I'd asked him to write me something. And I told him to take his time, and he is.
He wants to make sure it comes out right.
I guess so.
Oh, that's a great tune. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, it'll be awesome. And I just want to say in closing, for me, it's cool to be hanging here with all of you guys. Tony and I have, even though we've only actually hung out, half a dozen times. When I go to New York, we always have fun. We always manage to find a minute to get together at a bar. It's always at a bar too, which is weird.
Go figure.
And hopefully I'll be able to get back there again soon, and we can hang in person, and maybe we'll actually play another gig together sometime.
That would be great. And I wanted to thank you guys for doing these interviews. Everyone that I've seen has been great, and it's a great service for those of us that are sitting around like trolling Facebook, and it's a nice diversion from politics and just being able to be a trumpet dork for a while.
Yeah, and we're trying to keep it fun and civil and happy and all that kind of stuff too.
So I guess I shouldn't show you this button.
Well, back it up a little bit.
Okay, I'll show it to you. You guys know where my political leanings are.
Oh, there it is.
So I'm sorry, I just brought everything down. Hey, there's a pretty good trumpet section right here. Actually, so anybody watching that needs a trumpet section, this is a good trumpet section.
Here we are.
We're pretty
all
well
dressed up.
And everybody's got a home studio, so
yeah, we're ready to rock, man. So Venmo, PayPal, any of those things work. So
thanks for the pitch. That's great.
Well, keep on keeping on, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys and maybe chatting again and getting caught up in the future with you. Best of luck to you guys, Wayne. Best of health to you, and Tony. But looking forward to having you back in your shows. Same with Paul. Same with me. We're all looking forward to getting back out there and working again. So really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys.
Take care.
Bye.